At least 8 people are dead after a Russian attack on a shopping mall in the capital city of Kyiv. And in the hard-hit city of Mariupol, Russian officials offered to let civilians escape if Ukraine would let them take over the city. Ukraine's government said no. Imtiaz Tyab is following the latest from Lviv.
Mola, good morning. Well, Volodymyr Zelensky calling on Vladimir Putin for these face-to-face talks, but the Kremlin is basically saying that not enough progress has been made to end this conflict, which is now being described as a bloody stalemate. A warning now, some of the images in this report may be distressing for some viewers.
In the heart of Kyiv, an inferno. After Russian shelling targeted this shopping center overnight, by morning, and the devastation is near total. But it's in Mariupol where the horrific scale of Vladimir Putin's war on Ukraine is laid bare. This once thriving southern seaport, home to nearly 500,000, is now a wasteland. The bitter battle for the strategically important city on the Sea of Azov was captured in all its intensity in this video from a Ukrainian militant group. It appears to show them shooting directly at a Russian tank. For civilians, the violence has been catastrophic. There are now so many bodies, volunteers are left with little choice but to bury them wherever they can, including by the side of a road. But it's in Mariupol's basements where the living remain. We've been here for 11 days, she says. We have some food and some firewood, but in a week we'll have nothing. What should we do? The fall of Mariupol would be a significant victory for Vladimir Putin's war. It would allow Russian forces stationed across southern Ukraine to connect with soldiers in the east of the country. But at what cost? Artem, just 2, has shrapnel wounds in his stomach. He and other wounded children from Mariupol have been taken to this hospital. The doctor here says a 6-year-old boy with shrapnel in his head described, without any emotion, how his mother burned to death in their car after it was hit. He said to his dad, "Buy me a new mom. I want someone to walk me to school." At the St. George Church in the western city of Lviv, anguish at the horrors across Ukraine. Father Pavlo Drazdzik is a priest here.
My heart is broken. I cry all time because I can't understand why, what the reason. But I know that I need to be strong and I need to help the people.
Vladimir Putin's war is now in its 4th week. But it's the people of Ukraine who continue to show strength in their suffering as they pray for this living nightmare to end.
Now, according to the UN, 10 million Ukrainians have been displaced since fighting began. 10 million. That's nearly a quarter of this country's population, with the UN also saying now 3.3 million Ukrainians are now refugees abroad. More than half of those are children. Anne-Marie, Mola.
Well, Imtiaz, what Ukraine is doing in terms of fighting and resisting Russian advances is nothing short of remarkable. But the reality is they are outgunned and outmanned. How much longer can Ukrainian forces withstand these advances, specifically in Mariupol? Is the city inevitably going to fall to Russian control?
I mean, Mola, at this stage, it really is anyone's guess. As you saw in my report, the scenes from Mariupol are horrific. I mean, it's a wasteland. This was once a beautiful city, a historic city, a place which was home to nearly 500,000 people. And now it's just in ruins. And again, you saw in that report, you see corpses on the ground. You see shallow graves being dug on the side of the road. You see people sheltering in basements. They've been there now for weeks. In fact, just before we started talking, I had a chance to sit down with a family who was able to flee Mariupol, to come here to Lviv, and it was heartbreaking. You know, this is a family which has seen and suffered some of the most horrifying things you could ever imagine. The mother had a black eye and a bloodied head, which she suffered in a car accident as they tried to flee from the fighting. And the situation for them was so terrible. I mean, just the stories that they were telling us, and yet, so strong, so defiant, saying that they will defeat Vladimir Putin and that they will restore Ukraine to the glory that it was. But very quickly, will Mariupol stand? The short answer is it doesn't look likely, given this war of attrition that Vladimir Putin is waging on that very town. Mola and Maureen.
And so the thing about it is, as all of this is going on, Ukrainian officials and Russian officials have been meeting to talk. To what end, I do not know. We know that President Zelensky spent all last week speaking to lawmakers all around the world via video links. What is the likelihood that he will speak to Vladimir Putin?
Zelensky wants to. You know, he makes these addresses every single night to the Ukrainian people, and you know, it's classic Vladimir Zelensky. You see him in his sort of fatigues, and he's standing there proudly out in the streets of Ukraine, you know, speaking to his people. And he said last night to Vladimir Putin, "Time to talk, face to face. Let's do this." Now, we've heard from the Kremlin, and the Kremlin is saying, no, we're not going to do this. Not enough progress has been made in all the other talks that we've had up until now, and we need more progress before you're going to meet with Vladimir Putin. Now, in saying all of that, we have to just consider what's going on the ground here. Although we look at the horrors of Mariupol, and we look at the horrors of Kharkiv, and we look at the horrors of what's happening in and around Kyiv, this war is not going well for the Russians. This war is not going well for Vladimir Putin. In fact, it's being described as a bloody stalemate, despite the fact that Russia is far more powerful militarily. The Ukrainians have managed to put up such a strong resistance that the question is just how long can Russia sustain this fighting the way it is? They seem to think they can do it for a long time. But again, there's so much pressure now for a diplomatic solution. And there will no doubt be a lot of pressure on Vladimir Putin to meet with Volodymyr Zelensky, to sit down, to come up with some kind of agreement to end this horrific, horrific fighting. Anne-Marie, Mola.
Just an impossible situation there. Imtiaz in Ukraine. Thanks, Imtiaz. Stay safe.